What up, Winbush here, and today I'm going to show you guys how we can make several different type of materials. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's get started by building out a basic material. I'm inside of my Unreal Engine browser. I have Unreal Engine started up. So what I did was I clicked on film, video, and live events. I'm just going to save it to my folder here, name it project day 4. I turned on ray tracing and I'm going to hit create. Once everything's done, now we have Unreal Engine 5 opened up. Then to get started, we're just going to come down here into our content drawer. I'm going to dock it, and we're just going to create a really basic material just so we get familiar with how the materials work. So down here in my content browser, I right clicked, I'm coming up to new folder, and I'm just going to name this one metal because we're just going to make a simple metallic material. And I'm just going to click on that folder. Then I'm going to right click again to where it says material. And then I'm just going to name this one metal. Then I'm going to double click on it. And now we have this opened up, which is our material editor. So I'm going to make it full screen and I'm going to right click and you can see the hand icon there. That means that we could drag it over in our screen inside of our graph editor here. And if I scroll back on my mouse, that's going to move it back like so. And so we're just going to start by building out a really basic material, something that has some color to it and it has some reflections to it. So in order to do that, there's several ways that we could go about adding the color. The first way is over here on the right hand side where it says palette. If I left click on this, you can see it brings out all the different categories in which we have a search bar up here, or we can actually scroll down because everything is in alphabetical order. So the one that we're going to want to use is called constant 3 vector. And I'm not going to go through what all these mean. I'm basically just going to show you how to do everything and you learn by doing it, because I feel like the best way to learn anything is by just going through and seeing how everything works. So right now we have this one, it's called vector constant 3. And if I connect it to my base color, and then if I double click on my base color, you can see now we have a color picker in which, let's say I want to make it blue. So I'm going to move these up like so. So now we have a blue color here and you hit OK. And now you can see that it correlates with our shape in here. And if you want to change out this shape for whatever reason, down here in the lower right hand corner of this viewport, we could click on cylinder, we could click on plane, you can have a cube, and you can also set like a preview mesh in here as well, in which I'm just going to stick with the sphere. And now that's one way that we can actually bring in the constant 3. And let me actually delete this to show you the other way of doing it. So instead of coming over here, the palette, if I just actually click on base color, left click and drag out, you can see that we now have this wire here. And if I let it go, now it's going to bring up a search window and we can actually just type in constant. And you'll see that we have constant, constant 2, constant 3. So again, I'm going to come down here, the constant 3 vector. And there you go. Now we have it attached like so. So I'm going to actually delete this again, show you another way that we could bring that in. So anywhere here in our graph editor, if I right click and I type in constant, that's going to bring up our search bar. And this is another way that we could bring it in like so. And then you would just come here, connect it to base color. And then the last way is actually we could use a shortcut key. So number 3, if I hold in number 3 on my keyboard and left click, that's going to bring it in like so. And that would be the last way that we could bring it in. And each one of the constants has a different shortcut key. So if I hold in the number 1, left click, that's going to bring in constant variable 1, in which we're going to be using later on. Actually, let's leave this in here right now. So what I'm going to do is make this a color again. I'm going to double click on it. Let's go over to like light blue, something like that. Click OK. And now, since I have a constant 1 vector inside of here, I can actually attach this to metallic like so. And what this constant 1 variable is going to allow us to do is add numerical value to this. So if I come over here to where we have value under our details panel, if I say like 5 maybe, you can see we're starting to get a little bit more shine in there. Let's take it up to like 15. And we're not seeing it as much, and that's because we have to come down here and do the same thing to roughness. So I'm actually going to come to roughness, left click, drag it out. And I'm just going to type in constant. And I'm going to just do this one right here, constant. And now you can see we have a really shiny reflective material in here. And if I raise up my roughness like so, let's say maybe like 0.1. Now you can see it's getting less shiny. If I do something higher, like 0.5. Now it's really dull like how it was before. So let's maybe do like 0.3. And now you can see that the roughness is starting to work in here. So if I click on save and I exit this out, let's come over here and just add like a basic sphere material. So if I come right here where we have our cube, come down here to shapes, I'm just going to add a sphere. I'm going to zero it out like so. And actually I could get rid of this player start. We don't need it. Come over here, click on my sphere, double click on us to make it zoom in here. And I'm just going to drag it up so it's above the plane there. And I'm just going to drag this material on there. And now you can see that we have a shiny reflective material on our sphere here. And it was as easy as that. Now that we know how to build out a simple material, next let's build out a PBR material for if you bring in a 3D object that you might have built in another DCC or download it from another website. Like we have right here, I'm on one of my favorite websites, polyhaven.com. We can actually download free 3D models from this site, in which if you want to follow along with this tutorial, I'm going to be coming down here to where we have 3D models. I'm just going to click on browse model. Then if you come up here to search, let's type in TV. And I'm actually going to be using this one right here that just says television 01. And so I'm not going to be using Blender at all. What I'm going to use is basically just a basic FBX. I'm going to do it at 4K, and you're just going to click download. So what this is going to do for you, you're going to download a zip file, and then you're going to be able to bring that into Unreal Engine. And this is just a side note. For this particular model, everything is coming in as one piece, as you see right here. I'm currently using Cinema 4D, but you could use any program that you want to be able to separate this like I'm about to show you. So as you can see right now, the TV is all one set right here. So again, like I was saying, I'm using Cinema, but you should be able to use any 3D application that you're used to break this apart, because I want to have this screen separated from this television. So what I'm going to do inside Cinema 4D is actually just double click on the screen here, and I make sure that I have one of my transfer tools selected. And what I'm going to do is right click, and then I'm going to come down here to where it says split. Now you can see over here inside of my objects panel, it actually split it in two, in which I'm going to name this one screen. I'm just going to leave this one named television. And then I'm going to double click this right here, so I only see my screen. So I make sure I have my screen right here like so. Then I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to bring my TV back, in which if I select my TV, you can see we have our screen still in here. So I'm just going to hit delete with this selected, and now we have it busted out. We have a big hole in here, and if I unhide my screen, now you can see we have our screen back in here. And then if I select this, you can see that we have our screen is separate from our TV. So I'm not sure how to do this in like Maya or Blender, but you should be able to do that. I just wanted to let you guys know that, because this is how I'm going to bring it into Unreal Engine. So from here, I'm actually just going to make two materials. I'm going to name this one screen. And I'm going to name this one TV. And I'm just going to make it really basic. So I'm going to turn off reflections, come over here to color. I could just make this one red, double click on screen, turn off reflections. And I could just make this one, you know, maybe a different color. And I'm going to make this one, let's say like baby blue, somewhere like that. So I'm going to select this, bring it here. Select this one, bring it here like so. And whenever I'm ready to save it out, I'm just going to select both pieces right here. Come over here to File, Export, and I'm just going to export out of FBX. I'm going to leave everything as is here. Make sure I turn off my animation tracks, click OK. And then I already have this saved out from before, but I just named this one television _02 _4K. But this is the one that we would have downloaded from the website polyhaven.com. So I just wanted to share that with you guys in case you want to follow this along exactly, because we're going to actually make an emissive material that I'm going to put on the screen there, and I needed the pieces to be separated. Now we're back in Unreal Engine 5. I'm going to go back down to my content browser, and I'm going to make another folder. So I'm going to click on content. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to name this folder TV. And then I'm going to double click on it. Then I'm going to go over to my File Explorer, which I have opened up on my second monitor right here. I'm going to take that television that I just showed you guys that I separated. I'm going to left click and drag it into my content browser. And then right here from my FBX import options, I'm not going to click anything on. I'm just going to click import all. And this is going to pop up with a message log, in which I'm just going to exit this out. And now you can see I have my TV, and I have my TV screen in here, in which let me take my sphere and just move this off to the side. And then I'm going to shift click on both of these and just drag these both into my scene like so. So now you can see I have a television here inside of my scene. And what I'm going to do is actually take the glass here and my row outliner. I'm going to left click and drag it under the television, so it's all in one piece. So if I move my TV around, now the glass is going to move around with it. Now that we have this all set up, I'm actually going to come over here and I'm going to right click. I'm going to make a new folder, name this one FX. And I'm just going to bring all this stuff in here. like my sky sphere and the skylight and the light and all that stuff. I can even bring the floor in here as well. Reflection capture. Then I'm going to name another folder. I'm going to name this one items. And I'm just doing this to clean up my real outliner over here. Then I'm going to click save all because I haven't saved anything yet. And boom, we're good. Then the next step from here is we want to actually build out a material from scratch that we could put on this television set. So in order to do that, I'm going to actually come back over here instead of my file browser. I'm going to come right here to textures, and I'm just going to select all of these and drag these into my folder. So these should have came with your download that you got from Polyhaven. I'm going to drag this back off, and there we go. So now inside of our content browser, you can see that we have 4 new textures in here. We have a diffuse, we have a metallic, we have a normal map, and we have a roughness map. So what I'm going to do now is right click down here and click material. And I'm just going to name this TV underscore material. And then I'm going to double click on this. And this is going to bring back up that graph editor that we had saw previously. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller because I want to start clicking and dragging some of those materials into my graph editor. Actually, I could just select all of these. So I'm just going to left click, shift, select all of these. And I'm going to drag them all in here so I can make this full screen so we can get a better view of this. So what I want to do now is actually just separate these a little bit so we can have a better view of them. In this top one right here, this looks like this is going to be our diffuse. So where it says RGB, I'm going to left click, put that into my base color, and you can see everything starting to happen here on our sphere. And next, what I'm going to do, let's do with the normal map. I'm going to take this one where it says RGB, left click, drag it over here to normal. So you can see what we're doing. We're just dragging the nodes where they're supposed to be going. This one looks like it's our roughness map, RGB to roughness. And we'll take this one right here. This is our metallic map. I'm going to left click, bring it up to metallic. And you can see that it's really shiny right here if I look inside of my viewport. So what I'm going to do is actually hold down the 1 key, left click, and that's going to bring up a vector attribute, in which, let me delete that so I can show you guys better. If I right click in here, we can actually just search for it. So remember, there's several different ways that we could go about this, but I just want to show you guys the different ways that we could do it. So I'm going to left click and bring this into specular, and there we go. So we can actually take the numeric value of our specular. Let's maybe bump it up to like 0.2, maybe 0.1. That's a little bit too shiny. It's an older TV, and there we go. So it's not too dull. We have our material on here, and everything is as should be. So one other thing that we could do is actually, if you want to organize this a little bit better, if you click on your material, you can actually see that we have 3 dots right here, which will be our comment bubble. So if I left click on this, I can actually type this in as being a diffuse channel. And that way, if I move this around, like if it gets really complex in here, if you're doing like a really complex material, you'll always know like, hey, this is my diffuse material. Or I could come over here, name this one metal, like so. And you could do that so far as so forth. So that's just one of those organizational tools. That's good to know in case you start really getting into materials and getting them to be really, really complex, because the material editor could get really deep depending on what you want to do. So from here, what I'm going to do is click on save, and then I'm going to exit this out. And I'm just going to take my TV material, left click, and drag it onto my TV. And there we go. So the UVs and everything are already set up from the original creator. And you can see that we now have our material on our TV. Everything is looking good. And if you didn't want to drag and drop it onto there, if I actually select my TV, and I come over here to my details panel, and I slide down to where we have materials right here, you can actually just left click and drag it into our material node as well. So the next thing I want to do is actually take this TV screen and have it have like this glowing effect to it. In order to do that, I'm going to make an immersive material, which will actually be great because I can show you guys the power of Lumen in Unreal Engine 5. So we're going to get started by coming down here, actually hitting save all, and I'm going to right click down here. I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to name this one glow underscore blue. So I want to have like a blue glow off of the TV set here. So I'm going to double click on this. And then from here, you can see we have this node here called emissive color, in which I'm going to left click and drag out. And I'm just going to type in constant. And I'm going to do it on the constant 3. Then if I double click on this, let's say we want to make this a light blue color, something like that. And there we have our emissive material. I'm going to click on save here. And then I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit so I can click and drag this onto my TV set, in which we can see we have a little bit of a glow here. If I actually select something inside of my viewport, hold down Control, hold down L, and I'm just going to move my light down a little bit so it makes it a little bit darker in my scene. You can see that we have a little bit of a glow here, but we can actually amplify this by using a multiply node. So I'm actually going to make this larger again, and I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to drag this out, and I'm going to actually type in MULT, and we should see multiply right here under math. So I'm going to left click on this, and it's going to automatically connect it like so. And then right here under B, I'm just going to left click, drag this out. I'm going to type in constant. And now what this is going to do is this is going to pipe the color into A, and then it's going to multiply it by the value that I put on my constant node right here. And then it's going to put this out to the emissive color. So as you can see right now, everything is just all black. But if I look at my value here, it's at 0. So if I make this like 10, now you can see that we really have a big glowing emissive color, in which if I click save, I'm going to minimize this and just drag this off my screen here. Now you can see that we have a lot better glow here. The screen is a lot brighter, and it's actually bouncing off the ground here, which is cool. So that's the power of Lumen. We can actually have our material on our object actually react with everything inside of the world here. And if I want to make this look even better, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to delete a lot of my stuff in here that came in with default. So atmospheric fog, I'm going to delete that. Sky sphere, skylight, and I'm going to leave the reflection on here. But what I want to do now is we can see that everything is really dark, but it's not looking great yet. We can actually amplify this by using our post-process volume. So if I come over here where we have this cube with the plus sign, if I left click on this, come down here to visual effects, I'm going to click on post-process volume. And then down here in my details panel, I'm going to type in UNB, and that's going to bring up infinite extent unbound. And I'm just going to click this on. And now anything that I do inside of my post-process volume is going to actually engulf the entire scene here. So let me scroll this up a little bit and come down here to where we have exposed. And what I'm going to do right now is click on min EV 100 and max EV 100. And I'm going to turn these both down to 1. And then I'm going to come up here to where it says bloom. And I'm going to turn on method. I'm going to actually come down to convolution. That's going to give us a more cinematic experience and give us better lighting. And then for intensity, I'm probably going to bring this down to like 0.3, but you can already see what's kind of happening here. We're actually getting like a lens flare that's coming off of our glow here. And if I want to control this even more, if I come down here to where we have lens flare, I'm actually going to click on intensity. I'm going to click on bokeh size. And if I scroll up my bokeh size, you can see now it's starting to expand it. But if I go down, you can see that we're going to get a more defined lens flare in here that actually interacts with our scene here as we move around, which I think is really cool. And we can actually turn up the intensity as well if you want to, but I'm going to leave it at 1. Then my bokeh size, I think I'm just going to scroll up a little bit just so it illuminates the ground a little bit more, which I'm thinking that's looking pretty cool right there like that. So now that we know how to build out a basic material, we can build out a PBR material for our 3D objects. We can build out an emissive material. But the next thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is actually build out another PBR material from scratch. But this time we're going to actually add in tiling effects, because if we're going to build any type of road environment, it's always good to know how we can add in tiling so that we can tile out textures for like concrete or dirt or brick or anything of that nature. So I'm back at one of my favorite sites again, polyhaven.com. I'm going to come down here to where it says textures, because we have some cool photo scan textures here. And I'm actually just going to type in road. Now you can use any of these that you want. I'm just going to build out a basic asphalt material here. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to use a very basic ground material here. So if you come back up here again, you can see that it's on default with Blender, but you can just come down here to zip. You can actually select all the different passes, in which I'm just going to leave it at default here, leave it at 4K, and then you would just download it. But again, you can use any material here that you want. The basic thing I want to show you guys is how we can build this out from scratch and add tiling effects to it. Now back in Unreal Engine 5, we're going to come back down here to the content browser. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make a new folder. And I'm just going to name this one road. Then I'm going to drag in my file explorer here, because these are all the different images that I got from the website there. So I'm just going to left click, select all of these, click and drag them into my content browser here. Then I could drag this back off. So now we have all 5 of our materials down here. And I'm actually going to save all, save selected. And with all of our materials in here, I'm going to right click. I'm going to come to material. And I'm just going to name this one road underscore material. And then I'm going to double click on it, and that's going to bring back up our graph editor. So I can actually drag this up here. So I can select all these down here. And what you can see is it actually gave us two different type of normals. And so I'm going to go with the one that says DX. So I'm going to hold down Control, and that's going to deselect that when I select it. And then I'm just going to drag these into my scene here. Then I'm going to make this full screen, right click to drag over, start separating these out like so. And now let's start to connect these different nodes. So if I select this one right here, this one is actually the ambient occlusion. And the reason I know that is because if I look down here in my lower left hand corner under texture, it's going to show you what texture it is. So I'm going to go to RGB. I'm going to select this, come down here to ambient occlusion. And then this one, I could tell it's a normal map because of the color here. But again, you can kind of correlate it with the name down here. So I'm going to right click, make this one my normal map. This one right here is our diffuse. So I'm going to actually move this just so it's in order. So I'm going to make this top one diffuse, left click, drag in the basic materials. And then this one right here is going to be our roughness. So I'm going to left click, drag in the roughness. And you can see that it's really shiny here. So what I'm going to do is hold down the one key, left click, and that's going to make a constant variable for us. And I'm just going to put this under specular. And now it's going to dull it out again because our numerical value is 0. So if I put this like 0.1, it's going to bring a little bit of that back in. And it's always important to hit save because that's going to save everything we did here out. And I'm just going to minimize this and drag this off the screen here. And then what I'm going to do is actually just drag it onto my floor here. So I'm going to left click my material, drag it onto my floor. And now you can see that we actually have our material on our floor here, which is looking pretty nice here. So let me actually drag this down a little bit. I'm going to put this under FX like so. I'm going to click save all. And the next thing I want to show you guys is how we can actually make this a tileable material here. So let me actually left click on something here inside of my scene just to have something selected. I'm going to hold down Control, hit L, and I'm going to move my sunlight up a little bit so we can have a better understanding of what's happening with our material here. So right now you can see that it's tiling a lot and we don't have any control of it until we come back into our material graph editor and switch some stuff up. So I'm going to actually drag back in my material graph editor, and I'm going to scroll back here to give us a little bit more room. What I'm going to do is actually spread these out a little bit, and I'm going to right click in here and I'm going to make another multiply file. So if I type in MULT, then right here I'm going to click on multiply, and then I'm actually going to, before I start connecting more stuff here, I'm going to right click again and I'm going to type in texture, and then I'm going to hit space. I'm going to type in coordinate, and this is the one that I want right here. It's called texture coordinate, and this is going to allow us to do tiling on our material here. So if you look over here in our details panel, you can already see that we have tiling for the U, tiling for the V. We could do mirroring and everything in here, but I'm going to connect this one and scroll in here a little bit. I'm going to connect this one to A, and then I'm going to hold down the one key. I'm going to left click, and that's going to make another constant variable. And I'm going to put this in the B. And then from here, I'm actually going to take this part right here and connect it into UVs. Now, the cool thing about it is we can actually take this one multiply and connect it to all the different UVs. So I want to make sure that I do it for, my normals, my diffuse, and my ambient occlusion down here. I just want to make sure that it's connected to all my materials here. Now I'm going to click on save, and then I'm going to minimize this. Now, if I look inside of my viewport, you can see that it's really tiling like crazy. So if I actually click on my constant variable here, and let's make this like 5, then I save it. And now you can see that we're starting to get the tiling back in here. And let's say if I bring this up to like 25, maybe click on save. Now you can see that it's really tiling like crazy. So let's bring this all the way down to 1. I'm going to click on save. And there we go. So we have tiling, but it's not as much. And we can actually bring this down a lot more. Let's say like maybe 0.1 would be suffice. And there we go. So now you can see that the tile is taking up the entire floor there. So that might be a little bit too much. So maybe something around like 0.5. And this all depends on the effect that you're going to be going for as well. And now you can see that's how we can control our tiling with everything in unison. But say for whatever reason you want to stretch it, like on its X or its Y, you come over here and you select the red one that says texture coordinate. You would come down here and let's say like U tiling, I'm going to exaggerate this and put 5. Then I'm going to click on save, and you should see it really stretch out here. So you can see it actually really stretched out there. Let's click on 2. There you go. You can see that it's stretched even more, but this is a way that you can kind of go in and fine tune it if you want to scale it like on its X or its Y. But if you want to do everything in unison, you would just use the constant variable like that. And I think the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys how we can actually take an image with the alpha channel, bring it in, and have it illuminated by emissive material. So in order to do that, I'm going to come back down here into my content browser. I'm going to right click. I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm just going to name this one logo. I'm going to double click on it. Then I'm going to drag my file explorer in here because I actually have the Unreal Engine logo, and I'll give you guys a link to where you can download this. So now what I want to do is, the reason that we can't see the logo in here is because it has an alpha channel and the logo is actually white. So if I right click and make a material, we're going to work on this material so we can actually see it better. So I'm just going to name this one logo underscore UE. I'm going to double click on this. That's going to bring back up our graph editor. I'm going to minimize this so we can actually click and drag our material in here. And this is just a basic PNG file that I have here. I'm going to make this large again. And before I do anything else, I want to click on the results node right here. So what I'm going to do now is actually activate this opacity mask material. By default, it's not on. But if I come down here in my lower left-hand corner in my details panel where we see material, right here where it says blend mode opaque, I'm going to actually click on mask. And now you can see that it actually turned on the opacity mask. So if I come right here, this is actually my alpha channel. And if I left click and connect this to the opacity mask, you can see now our sphere, we can actually see our alpha channel like so. And if I want to actually make this one a flat primitive, now we can actually see our Unreal Engine logo here, and we have the alpha channel and everything is good. So in order to make this glow, we're going to build out the emissive material like we did before. I'm going to left click for my emissive material here, type in constant. I'm going to do a constant 3 vector. Then I'm going to make this color. We're just going to stick with blue. That seems to be our theme here. So now you can see that we have a blue emissive color coming off here. And of course, if we want to control it, we're going to add a multiply in here. Like so. And then off of the B, we're just going to make a constant 1. And then let's really crank this up like 15. I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to exit this out, and we're just going to make a flat plane. So I'm going to come up here, look for my basic shapes, look for the plane, bring it in here like so. Actually, if I come down here, my details panel, I could just zero out its coordinates. There we go. Let's say we want to have it right below the TV here, something like that. You know, Mom, just move this out. And then what I'm going to do is take my logo right here. It should be in green. This is our material. Just going to click and drag it down here like so. And now you can see we have the Unreal Engine logo here with the alpha channel. And it's actually emitting a glow from it. So if I just select something in my scene, hold down Control, hit L, bring up the little sundial here, and just make the scene completely dark. You can see that it's being emitted from our logo here and then from our television set here as well. If we bring down our metallic sphere from earlier, you can actually see that we're getting the glow off our metallic sphere here and everything. Actually, I can make this a little bit smaller. So let's say like 0.5. And then let's actually duplicate this because we can actually add some emissive materials to this, and I'll drag it around just so you can kind of see the power of Lumen. So let me go back to, where did I make my emissive material? I believe it's here under TV. So I'm going to select my glow underscore blue. And I'm just going to left click and drag it. And once you do into this open area, you can actually make a copy right here. So I'm going to click on copy. And I'm just going to name this one glow underscore orange. Let's just change the color up a little bit. So I'm going to double click on it. Let's make this one like an orange color. Click save. Exit this out. Then I'm just going to drag it onto my sphere here. And now you can see with the power of Lumen, this is actually illuminating everything in our scene here. And if I scroll it through our scene, you can see it's starting to interact with everything in our scene, which is really cool. We didn't really get this in Unreal Engine 4. So this is something that is new with the power of Lumen in Unreal Engine 5. But we can have our emissive materials on our object illuminate our scene and be totally interactive with everything. Make sure you guys click on the playlist up here and all the other videos surrounding me to continue on with your training. And until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Congratulations on finishing day 4. I'll see you soon. Take care.